In Washington, America's tough-talking National Security Advisor John Bolton has warned the countries, including India, against buying Venezuelan's oil, saying the nations and the firms that support the embattled President Nicolas Maduro's theft will not be forgotten. Bolton's warning through a tweet on Tuesday came a day after Venezuelan oil minister and the president of Latin America's state-run oil company, PDVSA Manuel Quevedo, told reporters in Greater Noida that a sanctions-hit country wants to sell more crude oil to India. The US has slapped sweeping sanctions on PDVSA with a view to curb the Venezuela's crude exports and put pressure on the socialist President Maduro to step down. While Quevedo told to reporters on the sidelines of the Petrotech conference in Greater Noida in India, "We have a good relationship with India. We want to continue this relationship. The relationship with India will continue. The trade will continue, and we will simply expand all the trade and relationship with India." Venezuela is the third largest supplier of oil to India, which is the world's third biggest oil consumers. Reacting to Quevedo's India's visit, Bolton said that nations and the firms that support Maduro's theft of Venezuelan's resources will not be forgotten. The United States will continue to use all of its powers to preserve the Venezuelan people's assets, and we encourage all the nations to work together to do the same. Venezuela produces around 1.57 million barrels of oil per day, half of what it is produced 2 decades ago. With the US stopping imports from Venezuela, PDVSA is seeking to retain buyers in other big consuming countries such as China and India. Quevedo, who now holds a rotating presidency of Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries or the OPEC, said on Monday that it was important to listen to all the consuming countries that represents oil demand to maintain the balance of the demand and the supply in the market. He also said that India certainly has a good and healthy relationship with Venezuela and all the members of the OPEC, and that will continue. So we always keep these communications and relations with all the consuming countries in order to ensure there's stability and balance between them. The US has caused a loss of about USD $20 billion to Venezuela's oil revenue department and economy. The Latin America country has the world's largest known reserves of oil, estimated at more than 300 billion barrels, bigger than Saudi Arabia's 266 million barrels. Relations between the US and Venezuela were already fraught between President Trump's administration became one of the first to back opposition leader Juan Guaido as interim president. Venezuela broke off the diplomatic relations in response, while Trump said the use of military force remained an option. India has refused to go along with the US and recognize Guaido as the president and stop dealing with Maduro's administration. India and Venezuela enjoys the close and cordial relations. We are of the view that it is for the people of Venezuela to find the political solution to resolve their difference, though the tougher constructive dialogue and discussion without resorting to violence. External Affairs Minister spokesperson of India, Mr. Ravish Kumar, said last month. 3 million people, or 10% of the populations, have left Venezuela since its economy started to worsen in 2014, according to the UN. Guaido says more than 300,000 Venezuelans are at risk of dying. Maduro, who has blamed US sanctions for Venezuela's economic woes, said the US intended to create a humanitarian crisis in order to justify military interventions. Maduro was re-elected to the top post in 2018 in an election which was not participated by most of the opposition parties. So what do you think of India rejecting US warning against Venezuela's buying oil for India? Will India always neglect US warning and do what India wants to do, or India might bend for it as Modi did for some of its policies when Modi was in talk with President Donald Trump in the US? China's mighty strategic shadow hangs over an accord signed by India and France on Saturday, aimed at stepping up the military cooperation in the Indian Ocean. Under the deal signed by the Prime Minister Narendra Modi of India and the President of France Emmanuel Macron, each country will open its naval bases to warships. China's territorial ambitions in the South China Sea already worried world powers, and its move into the vast Indian Ocean stretching from the Suez Canal to the Malacca Strait has heightened the concern. Modi and Macron are particularly anxious as China extended its military presence by opening a naval base in the eastern African nation of Djibouti last year. Beijing is also building up its trading network, so-called the One Belt One Road Initiative or the Belt and Road Initiative, which involves many of the Asian and the African nations that line the Indian Ocean. It has built a port in Pakistan border, taken a 99-year lease in Sri Lanka's Hambantota port, and bought a number of tiny islands in the Maldives. All of this has alarmed India, which sits at the heart of the Indian Ocean region. New Delhi experts see the Chinese company's investment in the asset ranging from airports to the Bangladesh Stock Exchange as Beijing is a Trojan horse. They essentially work at the behest of the state, and all of their investments are actually not commercial investments, but strategic investments, and they are meant to serve as the geopolitical purpose, said Abhijit Singh, a New Delhi-based think tank. Modi made clear when he came to power in 2014 that boosting India's influence in its immediate neighborhood was a strategic priority. India has stepped up its patrols in Sunda Strait, in the eastern Indian Ocean and Persian Gulf, while boosting its maritime surveillance capability around the Andaman and Nicobar Islands of Myanmar, where Chinese battleships and submarines have increasingly been on patrol. The Reunion Islands is in the turn of key of French territory in the Indian Ocean, and Paris also has an extensive Pacific interest. We have a strong maritime power, a big navy with our nuclear submarines, Macron said in an interview with Indian television broadcast on Friday. France is very active in this region, to the president's collective security, and for two more, India is one of their critical partners to preserve the stability in the whole region. China strongly denies any territorial motive against India despite its huge investments and military moves. The two countries are partners in development, not rivals, said the Foreign Minister of China. Louis Zhonghe, a specialist at the Shanghai Institute of International Studies, told the AFP that India was using China's threat to extend its own military power. Some international experts have doubt about Modi's response to China in the Indian Ocean and elsewhere. On a regional level, the Modi government has not proposed a convenient or convincing alternative to the new Silk Road proposed by Chinese leader Xi Jinping. But the country is growing, deploying submarines, and situations could quickly change to India's disadvantage. India just does not have the same financial and administrative strength as China, said Isabelle Saint-Mazat, a South Asia specialist at the Paris 8th University Institute of Geopolitics. So what do you think of India's growing maritime surveillance and growing up its Indian naval bases around the Indian Ocean, from getting Singapore, Oman, and from Mauritius and now to French Islands? Is India growing stronger in the Indian Ocean, or India is losing to Chinese patrols and naval bases? In New Delhi, Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu begins a 6-day visit to India on Sunday, hoping to boost the trade ties and iron out of difference arising from New Delhi's decision to scrap a defense deal, officials from both sides said. Israel's state-owned defense contractor Rafael announced on January 3rd that India had cancelled $500 million order to buy its Spike anti-tank guided missiles. Indian media said Delhi would instead opt for a homemade anti-tank missiles. If there is a problem, it can, it should, and it will be solved, said Daniel Carmon, an Israel ambassador to India, referring to the cancellation of the defense deals. India is Israel's biggest arms market, buying around $1 billion worth of weapons every year. Despite the cancellation of missiles deal, Defense Minister said this month it had cleared a plan worth of $72 million to buy 131 Barak surface-to-air missiles built by Rafael. The two countries have grown closer since Narendra Modi became the Prime Minister of India in 2014, winding the commercial cooperation beyond other outstanding defense ties. Netanyahu will be accompanied by 130-member delegations drawn from the cyber and the agriculture sector as well as from the defense. As well as New Delhi, they will also visit Mumbai and Modi's home state of Gujarat. The intention of the Prime Minister of India and the whole delegation is to boost trade, investment and tourism between both countries, said Gilad Kogan, the Deputy Director General for Asia and the Pacific in the Israel Foreign Minister. The deals for the gas and the oil corporations, cyber security and agricultural projects on the agenda while the meeting of the Israel Prime Minister. The trip comes about a half year after Modi became the first sitting Prime Minister of India visiting Israel. On the trip, Modi did not travel to the occupied West Bank to meet the Palestinian leaders as the visiting leaders of India usually do. However, India was among the more than 120 countries last month to vote in favor of a resolution calling for the United States to drop its recent recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital. The status of Jerusalem is one of the thorniest obstacles to the peace deals between Israel and the Palestinians. Cameron said India's oath against Israel at the UN General Assembly on the Jerusalem issue would not be affected by the bilateral ties. The vote at the UN is important, but it will not matter the big picture of India-Israel relationship, he said. The foreign policy expert in New Delhi said Mr. Modi had made significant changes in the diplomatic and the strategic ties with Israel, while at the same time retaining links with Palestinian leaders Mahmoud Abbas. Before Modi visited Israel in 2017 July, he hosted Abbas in India and offered help in the health and information technology. But it was a low-key profile meeting of India and Palestine. So what do you think of India's economic slowdown and agriculture slowdown because of Modi being the Prime Minister of India and having only the defense ties going up and up in the budget and to the connections and the making of defense companies in India? Will the Israeli and Indian Prime Minister will go by the dictatorship as they do now? Post your comments below. And if you like this video, please give a thumbs up and follow us on social networks and subscribe to our channel. And thanks for watching. This is WC Daily. Think big, think different. Bye.